This one is El Rai. I mean, it looks like R-O-I. It's R-O-I, and it looks like Roi, but it is Rai. It's a different O sound. And it means the God who sees. And this has to do with Hagar. She's the one that named or called God the God who sees. I've preached on this before years and years and years ago, but I started out with talking about playing hide and seek. And we played it with the grandkids, and then when I was a youth minister, almost every church I was at, when we go on retreats and things, we would play a similar game. It's called sardines, but you'd have in groups, and one group would go out and hide, and then all the others in groups would go out and try to find them. And if you found them, then you hid with them until everybody was hiding in the same spot. And my students loved it. Celia told me that they used to play a lot in the church on different things with the youth, and they play hide and seek, or with kids from church. And this one man was, boy back then, he always claimed to be such a great at hiding, and that's because the rest of them would go look for him. They just left him. But the whole point of that is that it's like it makes you feel good that somebody is looking for you. Yes, you're trying to hide, but in a sense, you have that feeling that somebody wants to find you. Somebody is looking for you. And that is kind of what's going on with this particular story. Abraham. What can you tell me about Abraham? I'm sorry? A friend of God, yes. Did you say? Yes, Isaac's father. He was called the father of our faith. He believed God. God told him, God told him to leave Ur of the Chaldeans and go. Didn't say where. Said just go, and I'm going to direct you as you go. But he believed God, and God counted that to him as righteousness. What did God promise him? Well, more than a son. Descendants, as numerous as the sand on the sea and that kind of stuff, right? And yet, years and years and years went by, and they didn't have any kids. And they got really concerned about that. So in our story, Sarai, his wife, came up with a plan. What was that plan? Yes. Give my servant Hagar to Abraham. Any offspring that she has then becomes Sarai's offspring. And that was very common back in that time period, because one of the worst things is for a woman not to be able to have kids. And so if you were the wife, especially of a very prominent man, which Abraham was, and you couldn't have kids, that was kind of like a slap in the face. They just couldn't live like that. So she came up with this idea, right? So sure enough, Hagar gets pregnant, and then what happens? Well, no, before all of that, Sarah and her did not get along, right? Yes, she was jealous. We don't know exactly, because the Bible is not real clear about what happened, but I can see just in reading it that Hagar might have gone around, because she had been a slave, and suddenly now she was considered the wife of Abraham, second wife, but the wife of Abraham. And she got pregnant, and she was probably kind of, showing off, look at me here, I'm pregnant, I'm going to have a baby, I'm going to have a son. Before that, she had no rights, no privileges, probably didn't have a real good self-esteem, and suddenly, like I said, she's the wife, and she's going to have the baby, and maybe she began to to think she was better than Sarah, right? We don't know exactly, but we do know there was a tension there. And it's really funny because whose idea was it to do that? Sarah's. And then in Genesis 16, verse 5, it says, then Sarah said to Abram, you are responsible for the wrong that I'm suffering. I put my servant in your arms, and now that she knows she's pregnant, she despises me. May the Lord judge between you and me. Your servant is in... Oh, sorry. So she blames it all on Abraham. Or Abram. This is before he became Abraham. And it's just kind of like, okay, you're the one that made this, decision, came up with this idea, but now she's blaming it on Abraham. And Abraham says, your servant is in your hands. Do with her whatever you think best. And Sarah mistreated Hagar, so she fled. And this whole story happens when Sarah has fled out into the wilderness to get away from, the Hagar has gone out into the wilderness to get away from Sarah. So my first point, the first question, there was actually two questions that the angel of the Lord asked her. And the first one was, where have you come from? So in Genesis 16, verse 7, it says, the angel of the Lord found Hagar. By the way, Hagar stopped at this spring. Well, stopped, first of all. They were out of water. And she didn't want to watch her son die, so he sent him off a little ways, and she stayed there and started praying. And then the angel appeared and told her, look, and there's a well, there's water there for her. And so it says that the Lord found Hagar near a spring in the desert. It was a spring that is beside the road to Shur. And he said, Hagar, servant of Sarai, where have you come from and where are you going? Those are the two questions. Where have you come from and where are you going? And she said, I'm running away from my mistress Sarai. Now, she answered the first one. Where have you come from? But she never really answered the second one, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But from this, Abraham says, Hagar is your servant. Do with her however you want. He made a distinction, even though they were both considered his wives. He made a distinction between Sarah and Hagar. And basically said, you can do with her however you want, right? Whatever you want to do. And so... and that's what happened, and Hagar ran away. So think about this. Hagar was an Egyptian. She was a slave. She was taken away from her family. She was away from her friends. She had no rights. And then suddenly and unexpectedly, she was promoted to this position of influence, respectability, probably got prideful. She probably mistreated Sarai, and then Sarah mistreated her. And by the way, we are still suffering from that decision, right? Because the biggest two groups that are at odds with each other all the time are the Jews and the Arabs. And the Arabs are descendants from Ishmael, descendants from Hagar. Jews are descendants from Sarah. So the world is still suffering from the decision that Sarah made by giving her Hagar to her husband. But the same question is asked to us too. Where are you? Or where have you come from? Maybe you feel a lot like Hagar did. You feel mistreated, abused, neglected, alone, without hope, without love. Maybe you realize that you made mistakes and that you have to live with the consequences of those mistakes. And it's really bad when you look around and there's people all around you that are making the same kind of mistakes that don't seem to suffer at all. And that is, that's true. It happens. Why some people suffer more than others, I don't know. But it's easy to wonder if God really cares sometimes. If we start getting into difficulties and it's easy for us to wonder sometimes if God really cares for us. And then my second point is that the angel of the Lord appeared. Now, there is a good chance that this, because it says the angel, so Who is that going to be? Well, it's probably going to be Jesus. What is an Old Testament appearing of Jesus called? Do you remember that? Yes, I have told you. Well, there's two words. One of them is theophany, which is the Old Testament appearance of God, which Jesus would fit under there. But then the more specific one is a Christophany, an Old Testament appearance of Christ before he came in flesh as a baby. And so this is probably a Christophany, that Jesus himself showed up and talked to her and told her not only, I'll get a little bit later what he actually said to her, but that's when she said in verse 13, she gave him the name, the Lord who spoke to her, you are the God who sees me. You are El Rai. For she said, I have now seen the one who sees me. Even though she kind of felt alone, afraid, unwanted, unloved, God saw her. And God didn't just see her, God cared. I want to read let me see, this is a quote. I don't remember who I got it from because I forgot to write that down. It's in a book that's on my desk right now. But it says, God is the one who numbers the hairs on our head, who knows our circumstances, past, present, and future. And when you pray to El Rai, you are praying to the one who knows everything about you. Think about that. It's not that he sees, but he sees, he knows, he cares, he loves, and he wants to give us a hope and a future, which he went ahead and told Hagar what to expect in the future. But it reminded me of Jeremiah 29:11. Many of you probably know that. For I know that the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. And in Hebrew, it's more like a hopeful future. He plans to give us a hopeful future. Let's say, think about this, that I was to suddenly collapse right here, pass out, fall down. And then all of you would say, hey, he must be done early. Look at that. We get out early. Let's go. Woo, woo. And you leave. Or actually, Bob gets up and he does the dismissal course, and then you leave. And you just leave me laying there. And then, Saturday, our janitor comes in and she sees me laying there and shrugs her shoulders and goes on. There's a big difference between seeing something and doing something, right? A lot of people think God is kind of like what I just described, that he sees those things that are going on, but he doesn't really do anything about it unless he finds that we're doing something wrong. And then he, zaps us or something. But that's not what this picture is in the story here. Not only did God see her, but God responded. God did something about it. And he not only, I think I'm getting ready to tell you what he did. He not only saw her and loved her, but he told her about what was going to happen. Okay, good. I haven't got to that yet. There was a song when we lived in Eufaula. There was a black church in town that we did a lot of things with them. We would do every year we'd do a service either at their church or at all church, and we combine. If it was at our church, then their pastor would preach. If it was at their church, our pastor would preach. Did a lot of stuff with them, but their choir sang a song, and it's called "He's an On-Time God." And I know I think we've sung it here before, but it says, "He's an on-time God." Yes, he is. He may not come when you want him, but he'll be there right on time. He's an on-time God. Yes, he is. Sometimes we want God to answer right now, but it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to. But he will answer, and he will be there right on time, because he is the God who sees. He is the God who sees and cares and knows. And then I'll go back to the second question. Maybe I should have done this in a little bit different order, but the second question is, where are you going? And back in verses 8 through 10, it says the angel said, Hagar, servant of Sarai, where have you come from and where are you going? And she said, I'm running away from my mistress Sarai. She answered. And then the angel of the Lord told her, go back to your mistress and submit to her. And the angel added, I will so increase your descendants that they will be too numerous to count. Now, I like the way one of the guys I read about this, he said that Sarah didn't answer the second question. Jesus did. She answered, where have you come from? Well, I'm running away from Sarah because she's mistreating me. But she doesn't answer the where are you going part. Jesus did. And he said, first of all, go back to your mistress and submit to her. Think about that. I don't know how many times in my life I've been praying, God, do something, move me here, give me another job, give me another, something. I don't want to be in this situation anymore. And it doesn't usually happen that quick. Usually it's something that it'll happen, but it might be years, down the road before something ever changes. And part of that is my impatience, and part of it, I think, is God puts us in positions to learn about Him and learn about things. And can you imagine how this felt with her? Here she was running away because of being mistreated, and she gets way out there, and the angel says, go back and submit to her. And then he made a promise to her. He said, I will so increase your descendants that they will be too numerous to count. He gave her a future. He gives us a future too. Sometimes the present is not so easy to handle. Present is not something we want to stay in, but we have to remember we have a future. And that future is in heaven, and it's wonderful. It's perfect. There's still, when things happen, when we make decisions, there's still sometimes consequences, but we can have it with a new attitude. And I don't have it in here. She didn't have it. I'll try to remember all of it. There was an evangelist, and I can see I think it's Tony Campolo, went to and did a revival service. And while he was doing it, this lady asked him to come and talk to her husband because he had cancer, and he was just really upset about everything, hated everything, mad at mad at the world, mad at God. And Tony Campolo said he went and talked to this guy, and shared a lot about him, then prayed with him. And about a year or so later, he was back in that area and met the lady and talked to her and said how her husband, and she said, oh, he passed away like 2 weeks after the revival. Yeah, sorry about that. Oh no, my other doctor, I hope they're not trying to tell me to postpone. Anyway, she said, oh, he prayed, and he said, oh, I really thought God was going to heal him. And she said, oh, he did. The last 2 weeks of his life were wonderful. He was so happy. He was, God did a work in his life and changed it. And he might not have been healed physically, but he was healed emotionally and healed spiritually. And sometimes that's what we need. Even if we still go through the consequences of things, we can have a better attitude about everything. One of the things, and I don't want to be morbid about Steve, but when I went and talked to him, he's got a great attitude. And he told me, I went and talked to him. I've talked to him on the phone, and he's always like, yep, well, I'm not worried. I know where I'm going. And hopefully, he said, I'd like to stay around here a little bit longer, but that's up to God. Well, echo. It is the doctor again. Okay. Let's see where I'm at. Can you got the, it's coming out of the speaker. Thank you. And she gave the name of the Lord, "You are the God who sees me, for for she said, I have now seen the one who sees me." So the question is, and I think we all know that God sees us. He knows all about us. But the question is, do we see him in everything? Do we see him as the God who sees? This idea that God sees and takes care of us and does things for us is found in a lot of different places in Scripture. But I'm going to read Psalm 121. It says, "I lift my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over you will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and your going, both now and forevermore." God he's going to see us. He knows what's going on in our lives, and he's there to help us through it, no matter what it is that we're facing. Sometimes that can be a very difficult thing, but we can always trust and believe that God's there with us. Okay? Any questions or comments? Yes, ma'am.
Back then, did they have the feeling that they had to have a son born first?
Yes. And, even if they had a daughter first, if the son came along, he would be considered the firstborn because he's the one that's going to carry on the family name. Women were not very highly thought of. That's still true in China, I believe, and some other countries. That was, Psalm 121. Psalm 121. Mm-hmm. And that's the whole thing. It's 8 verses long, so it's a short one. And I want to remind you that even though other people don't see you, you may seem inconspicuous, God sees you. Mm-hmm, sure. You're just saying, hurry up, it's time. All right. Oh. Now, you're supposed to start with 5, not with 2. I mean, come on. All right. Anything else? All right. Well, let's stand, and Bob can lead us in our dismissal chorus now.
There's no familiar one here. See if we can we get it, Charlie?
Mm-hmm.
We can do it, can't we? We're going to do it. All right, here we go.
Every day with Jesus is sweeter than the day before. Every day with Jesus, I love him more and more. Jesus saves and keeps me, and he's the one I'm waiting for. Every day with Jesus is sweeter than the day before.